However, thousands were left behind or captured as German forces closed in. This evacuation was chaotic, harrowing, and marked by further loss as German aircraft bombed ships in retreating columns. By June 1st, 1941, the battle was over. The last remaining Allied troops surrendered or were captured, and Crete fell fully under German control. The cost had been immense. The Allies suffered over 15,000 casualties, including nearly 12,000 captured. The Germans, while victorious, paid a high price, losing approximately 4,000 men. Many of them were elite paratroopers. The strategic victory did little to erase the human cost. For Germany, the losses were so severe that Hitler would never again authorize a large-scale airborne assault. For the Allies, the defeat was sobering but also educational, providing valuable lessons that would influence future campaigns. The German victory at Crete was tactically impressive but strategically costly. While Germany succeeded in capturing the island and removing a major Allied foothold in the Mediterranean, the price they paid in elite troops was staggering. Over 4,000 German paratroopers were killed, wounded, or declared missing in the course of the 10-day campaign. These were some of the most highly trained soldiers in the German arsenal, irreplaceable veterans who had trained for years for airborne operations. Hitler was so alarmed by the losses that he reportedly said, "The day of the paratrooper is over." He vowed never again to approve such a large-scale airborne operation. That decision would have lasting consequences. It meant that Germany would not make full use of its airborne potential in future battles, including on the Eastern Front, where mobility and rapid deployment could have offered advantages. In other words, while Germany won the island, they paid a long-term price by essentially abandoning a military innovation that, with better execution, might have served them well elsewhere. From a strategic perspective, the battle's outcome had gave Germany short-term control over the eastern Mediterranean. With Crete in their hands, they had a base from which to launch reconnaissance missions, attack British naval convoys, and support operations in North Africa. However, they never fully capitalized on that advantage. Control of the island became more of a logistical burden than an operational advantage, especially as the tide of war turned. The island required a large occupation force, constant supplies, and was subject to frequent Allied air raids. It also became a symbol of resistance as Greek partisans and local civilians, infuriated by German atrocities committed during and after the invasion, mounted a sustained guerrilla campaign that tied down German troops for years to come. Perhaps more important than the immediate military consequences were the long-term implications of the Battle of Crete had for both sides. For the Allies, the battle was a hard-earned lesson in the importance of air superiority. The defeat prompted a thorough reassessment of airborne tactics and highlighted the need for rapid deployment forces, better coordination between air and ground units, and more investment in air defense. In later battles, most notably the Normandy invasion in 1944, the Allies would turn these lessons into action. Paratroopers played a key role in Operation Overlord, and by that, the Allies had learned to coordinate airborne and amphibious forces in a much more effective way than the Germans had done on Crete. The Battle of Crete, then, served almost as a trial run, a painful, costly one for the kind of integrated operations that would become a standard later in the war. Moreover, Crete demonstrated the incredible resolve of Commonwealth troops and local Greek fighters. Despite being outgunned, undersupplied, and isolated, they resisted fiercely. Many civilians took up arms, sometimes with nothing more than farming tools, against elite German forces. This led to brutal reprisals by the occupying Nazis, including massacres of entire villages, but also sparked an enduring legacy of resistance. The spirit of defiance shown by the Cretans earned the respect of the Allied world and fueled anti-Nazi sentiment throughout occupied Europe. In this time, the battle had psychological and political effects far beyond its military scope. It reminded the world that even in the face of overwhelming force, resistance was not only possible, it could be powerful and enduring. In terms of broader strategic impact, Battle of Crete also altered German timelines and shifted resources in ways that arguably helped the Allies in other theaters. The delay caused by the Cretan campaign may have played a role, albeit a minor one, in pushing back the launch of Operation Barbarossa, the German invasion of the Soviet Union. Though the delay was only a matter of weeks, many historians argue that the Germans' failure to capture Moscow before the harsh winter set in was a turning point in the war. Crete then might have had ripple effects far beyond its island shores. For the Allied forces who fought there, the battle had become a symbol of perseverance. The evacuation efforts, though chaotic, managed to save thousands of soldiers who would fight again in North Africa and beyond. The Royal Navy, despite suffering heavy losses, carried a remarkable operation under fire. Sailors and soldiers alike displayed immense bravery, often prioritized the rescue efforts of others over their own safety. These stories of valor added to the growing myths of Allied resilience and helped galvanize public support for their war back home. Finally, Crete became a lasting chapter in the history of military strategy. The battle is now studied in military academies around the world as a case study in the dangers of underestimating logistics, the vulnerability of airborne troops during deployment, and the necessity of securing air superiority before any major operation. While Germany's tactical innovation was bold, it lacked the depth and follow-through needed to make it a sustainable success. The Allies, learning from these lessons, will go on to achieve greater feats in coordination in later years, ultimately leading to the defeat of the Axis powers. The Battle of Crete was more than a fierce confrontation on a Mediterranean island. It was a crossroads moment in the history of World War II. On the surface, it was a German victory. The Axis powers seized the strategically important island, routed Allied defenders, and claimed dominance over the eastern Mediterranean. But beneath their surface were layers of deeper consequence. The cost of Germany and elite troops and lost momentum forced a reevaluation of their entire airborne strategy. It also delayed their timetable for eastern expansion and tied up resources and occupation and counterinsurgency. For the Allies, the battle was a painful defeat, but it was also a turning point. It exposed their weaknesses but also their strengths. It revealed the power of local resistance and set the stage for future innovations in airborne and joint operations. Crete also humanized the war. In its fields, hills, and villages, soldiers from distant lands fought and died alongside local civilians. Sacrifices made there by Greeks, New Zealanders, Australians, British troops, and others show the global nature of the conflict and the shared values that underpin the Allied cause. While the battlefield was eventually lost, a resolve it inspired remained. The resilience shown on Crete would echo in future campaigns, from El Alamein to Normandy, in the memory of nations long after the war ended. The Battle of Crete stands as a complex and compelling chapter in World War II history. It was an innovative operation that pushed the boundaries of military strategy, a grim lesson in the cost of ambition, and a powerful reminder of the human spirit's capacity to endure. It showed us how quickly the balance of power can shift a war, not just through firepower, but through decisions, timing, and the will to fight. Though often overshadowed by larger and more famous battles, Crete remains one of the war's most important episodes because it encapsulated the evolving nature of modern conflict and the emerging global stakes of the Second World War. As we reflect on the battle today, we honor not only those who fought and fell, but also enduring lessons it gave us. The strategy without foresight is dangerous, that technology must be paired with planning, and that even in defeat, courage can lay the foundation for eventual victory. Thank you. And here are my sources.